In a world full of rush, pause for a drink. Pure, clear, and fresh. Let your mind think. In every sip of 1 and 8 alkaline, you'll find a taste so pure, refreshes the mind. With a 9.5 pH, it's balanced just right. Electrolytes to keep you bright. Potassium fuels your everyday, keeps you glowing in every way. Drink water and mind your business until it's time to stand on it. 1 and 8 alkaline, the water that keeps you glowing. Let's glow.
Grace and peace, grace and peace, and good morning. I hope everybody can hear me. Grace and peace. It is Saturday, June 28th, and I am back live. And I want to just apologize for the absence. I know we've been off for a while. Last weekend, I was away at a conference, and then also was celebrating the life of a dear friend. Uh, from college and adult life, and just a lot of things going on. And then had so much going on this week as well. Wasn't able to get on Wednesday as usual. Sometimes we get to certain points we just have to take some breaks and take some time for ourselves. So. But I'm back on this morning, and I hope everybody's had a blessed week. And I won't be before you too long this morning. Just want to share a couple things, um, and just kind of speak. I'm gonna put on the pastoral hat and just share a couple verses, because this is at this time, this is a season of transition, or a time of transition in my life, particularly vocationally, but also personally. Um, so just want to share some brief thoughts. A lot of things going on in the world. So just want to, just take time to take a breath, and just try to, I guess, take a moment to reset and prepare ourselves, just for a new day, maybe a new season, um, a new path, whatever it may be. So we look at that. So we'll dive into that. And then, of course, before we go, I just kind of remind everybody. I mean, this month has flown by, and I feel like I haven't had a chance to really speak on it, but let me put it up. But, we're closing out our book of the month of Water and the Spirit by Maladoma Some. I hope the light, right? Close out, and I'm not close to finishing. I'm gonna try to finish it this weekend. Um, but it was, an interesting thing, that I wanted to talk about last week, that I kind of touch on, just with everything that's going. So not a lot going on in the community. I know we're getting close to 4th of July, so we know there's a lot of things that'll be going on around that. And maybe once we get a look at some of the stuff locally, we'll put that out, maybe on Wednesday Wisdom, to kind of share what's going on. But other than that, once again, I hope everybody's having a good morning. Just come on in, come on in. And, if you got thoughts you want to share, or questions, or reach out, please uh, comment in the chat. But let me put up our information. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, the Resource Center Bookstore. You can email us at the RCB store at Gmail, or you can catch us on Instagram at the RCB store. So shout out to everybody on IG. Okay, I see my brother Harry Reeves in the building. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you, man. We gotta get some stuff going. I know, Harry. I know. I'm gonna get on it. But with that being said, uh, let's go ahead and get started. All right. So, like I said, won't be too long before you. Like I said, I'm still in the process of of coming back to myself, but hopefully in July, the great month of July. There's a particular reason why that's the great month, because my born day is within that month. So I know I will feel vivacious and alive again. But just want to touch on a couple of things. And like I said, this is kind of a season of transition, and it's been kind of overwhelming. Not so much in a bad way. Well, we deal with certain things that we can't control, but but it's also a season of transition for me vocationally. Um, So I wanted to put on my pastoral hat and maybe lift up a couple of scriptures that speak to that. And most of these are familiar, but it kind of speaks to just how we go through changes, right? And in our faith and in our believing as God as the provider and God's providence, we put our faith in the Creator to lead us and in the plans that He has for us. So, first, I want to lift up, and I didn't write these down because I'm just kind of, I'm sorry, and I'll pop them up. I'll make sure I do that next time. But wanted to start with Isaiah 43, Isaiah 43. Verses 18 and 19. And I like to do NRSV. Sometimes it's good to go KJV or something to get the certain words for the impact, but NRSV. But Isaiah 43, 18, 19 says, "Do not remember the former things or consider the things of old. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." And I like this verse because when we see that way, I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. It just speaks to the hope, because sometimes, as I say, there are things that we can't control in our life. I'm kind of dealing with a season of loss of friends. As I said, I lost a close friend who was young, 52. Kind of unexpected on that a bit later. If things we don't expect, and family members, and in place of wilderness or this uncertainty. We know there are things that will spring forth, there's fruit that grow from this, and despite the or the uncertainty, the Creator will make a way. So it speaks back to also that hope, right? Even when we don't know, we don't lean on our own understanding, as Proverbs reminds us, right? We trust in the ways of God. So we place that faith and that trust once again. Which brings me forward, just as I say, transitioning vocationally into a new opportunity and new things. Vocationally, it brings me back to one of my favorite portions of scripture. I'm only going to lift up one verse, but that is Jeremiah 29, right? And verse 11. And I know this is familiar, but I'm going to say it again because I know you want to hear it. But Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope." And that's, leading from the Isaiah, we come to the Jeremiah passage, which speaks once again to that future of hope, right? And we trust and we know, as the Lord spoke to Jeremiah and said, I know the plans, and it's for your welfare and for your harm. And as we make decisions, or we go through these changes, if we go through them with trust and faith in Creator, that the Creator is leading us in these things, we know it will be for our welfare wherever we go, right? Um, I had this talk several times with people. If we trust in God, like whichever path we choose, or whatever decisions, right? I don't believe there's a wrong decision. I believe there's always something for us to to learn and grow from if we're doing it in step with God and we're allowing the Creator to lead. I don't think it is. Now, if we try to do it on our own for selfish intent, that's a different story, right? We get what comes. But as long as we're trusting in God, if we're trusting in the Creator and allowing the Creator to lead us in all things, I don't think any decision is not for our benefit. I think there will always be things we learn and take from it, and it builds the hope. And it builds the hope. So we trust in that. And then finally, I'm gonna stay in the wisdom literature, or I'm gonna go to the wisdom literature uh, in Ecclesiastes, and this kind of sums everything together for me. And that's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, which says, "For everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven." So it always speaks that in this life, things are always changing, right? There are growing seasons. There are seasons of death and loss. There are seasons of plenty, right? But it's ever changing, right? Because everything has its time. Everything has its place. So once again, building on that understanding of trust, and knowing this, right? It makes us better equipped to deal with these changes, right? We only have a season here in this body, in this shell. We only have a season with our loved ones, our parents, our family, right? With occupations and vocations, we have a season because we often want to change or grow, right? We grow and we do different things, and it can be tough, but if we understand that, right, it helps strengthen us in those seasons of change, right? Good, sometimes difficult, but with God, we know we can withstand, right? And we trust and lean on the Creator. So I said that because once again, um, in this season, um, I look at my friend, in which we celebrated his life last Saturday. And, just a little background. When I was in college, believe it or not, I don't really try to show it on here, but when I was in college, I was a part of a singing group. There was four of us. There was Big Randall, McNeil, Big Stanley Brundage, we called Tiny or Breeze. And then there was Brother Sean Johnson, uh, the preacher, as we called him. And we grew pretty close, right? And when I joined this group, I was maybe 20 years old, 21 maybe, right? So we kind of formed together and we grew close and we kind of entered into adulthood um, together. But um, in that, as it stands today, as we lost another, I'm the last remaining of the group. My other three brothers and friends have now all transitioned, and are not here with us anymore. Believe we lost Randall in 2007. We lost Tiny in 2017, and then we just lost Brother Sean. But but in that, I wanna say this, and it was funny because at this time I was dealing with a little health concern with the abscess on my temple last week, which kind of got out of control. So last week, before I'm about to head out of town, I had to go to the emergency room because it was finally, I guess, starting to heal and draining, but I had swollen eye. But and just thinking about staying on top of our health and just letting people know what's going on, because I look at uh, my brother who I just lost. Apparently there was some health issues going on, which eventually led to him having a severe stroke, which is what placed him in the condition before he transitioned. But I just know of several brothers that I have lost, but may not have known what was going on, or what they had been going through. And I want to say this to the men out here, and specifically black males too, because we struggle with this, and I know there's a stigma with hospitals and doctors, and we have health care. But sometimes, as males, we like to put stuff off. We have this masculine. If it doesn't basically like cripple us to where we can't walk or do certain basic functions, eat or something, we kind of put things off, right? And a lot of times we're late to kind of check on things or discover things. And then also, if it's nothing we feel is maybe immediate, a lot of times we keep a lot of things covered up. And there's been numerous times I've run into people and they'd be like, man, well, I was in the hospital for this and that, or I was dealing with this, or I had this surgery, or eventually, we hear about them uh, passing away. Um, and in this case, I know of a couple of close friends who, I had no idea of what they were dealing with, what was going on, or how their lives have changed. And then, I of something severe happening, or the loss of life. And it's like, man, I hate it because I would have loved to have more time with them, or been able to be there for them, or talk with them. So I'm using this as a platform to just say, brothers, if we're going through things physically, mentally, emotionally, reach out to those close. Like, we got to be able to share those things so we don't go through these things alone. It can be lonely out here, but especially with their health, because I truly believe that you know the more we can lean on our family, our friends in these difficult times, the more it gives us strength and life to battle through these things. And I think sometimes as males, we kind of just like, I'm gonna get through it. I don't want a lot of fuss. I don't want too many people to know. And it's but man, enough of that. I've lost too many brothers, and not knowing what has gone on, or wasn't able to really, hey man, just say I love you, or be there, or do something, you know. So I say this as a plea, and I'm going to try to be more clear if I go through major. Now, my little health thing wasn't major, but I did share with several people just what's going on. But you know, if those times come, I'm going to try to be transparent, because I don't want to try to go through these things alone. And I know there's things we battle, right? Some of us are private people, and I get it. But I just plead that we don't try to go through these things alone. Um, lean on those who love you and care for you. Um, and and become community, right? Community, to me, heals all, right? And we'll speak to that even as I touch on the book. But that's all I want to kind of touch on with that. But it just kind of weighed on me, because as we go and we celebrate life, and we remember how everybody was, and they were vibrant, and stuff. And then you find out there were some challenges and stuff, and it's just like, man, I wish I would have known that. I could have made the effort. Now, let me say this: like, we still should be trying to make those efforts to see one another regardless, right? It shouldn't be under these type of circumstances where we reach back out or connect again, right? We should be trying to make those efforts regardless. But we know with life, sometimes it's tough. And then, it's like no news is good news. You don't hear anything. It's like, hey, man, I trust. Let me call and check every blue moon, send a text, or like something on social media. I get it. But when we go through things, I truly believe in the community. And one last thing on that, uh, I remember being down there, and another mutual friend of ours, um, who hadn't seen in probably more than 15 years, we just connected, and just seeing that brother again, and just reconnecting, and just hearing he was like, man, I didn't know this had happened. I didn't know that had happened. And it's just, it's wild how we can lose contact, and just not know what's going on. So, I said that just to appeal again to that. Hey, let's reach out. Let's keep our communities connected to know what's going on, because in the end, those family members and extended family, and friends are what will keep us strengthened in the most difficult moments. So I'm gonna wrap that up, and kind of lead into our book. I told you I'm not gonna be before you this morning. I'm still kind of, because like I say, I'm in the process of transitioning vocationally, so it's just a lot of stuff to handle, and then some more losses has happened. So I'm trudging through. So y'all keep me prayed up, right? Um, but I do want to say, um, real quickly before I transition into our book, make sure you share this out, like, share, subscribe. Um, we will be back on Wednesday with the Wednesday Wisdom. We got some big things coming up uh, in July, or a couple of big interviews that are taking place. But please share, and then we'll be back on regular schedule. Um, but before we transition out of here, um, I do want to touch on, our book of the month of Water and the Spirit, Malidoma Soulmate, right? Um, and one thing, and I wanted to kind of touch on this, was, um, it, in the book, it was this, he's speaking of, his struggle between the traditions of the Dagara, his people, his tribe, his village, and the struggles with the colonial uh, path, he was taken by the Jesuits, and then, lived a Western life, right? And had struggles like coming back into his culture, and I'm just giving basic premise, right? And then the couple weeks ago, we kind of talked about a situation where his father had gotten sick, but his father had become, a Catholic, and was having his own battle between some of the tribal and cultural um, practices and stuff versus his new uh, Catholicism, his Christianity, right? And how he was navigating that. And then, but we were coming to a part, and we talked about the relationship Malidoma had with his grandfather, and the significance of the grandparent and the child, right? Where they are in the circle of life, right? As the grandparents are close to transitioning back, right? To the heavens, to the ancestors, as the child has just basically come from, right? Creation, right? Heavens, right? So there's a connection there and a communication, right? So Malidoma is speaking, and this is still early in the book, and we'll dive into something maybe next week since I missed a week. But he's speaking uh, on the, as he called, the farewell of his grandfather and the death, and he was just speaking about that scene when he had that chance to I guess gain instruction and stuff before his grandfather passed, and his grandfather kind of laid out his path, right? That he was destined for as he grows older, and even protecting the ways of the Dagara people, but also seeing his path and his journey in Western culture. And his grandfather would say, you'll understand it when you get older and you go through the initiation of our people and the culture and that. But one key element that I wanted to touch on in that, right? He talked about, the actual transitioning of his grandfather and the celebrations and the practices and rituals of his village. And then he talked about a point to where certain things or certain secret rite or passage had become lost, right? More as they adopted some of the Western culture and how certain things didn't survive the growth um, of his village or his compound, or how things become lost over time. And I just think about that, just with our families and certain traditions we have within our families and stuff. And as generations go, sometimes, as children move further away or what have you, whatever circumstances, right? And we think about those traditions and things that get lost or keep us connected as a family. I know in a couple of weeks we have our my family, we celebrate our annual family reunion, um, and we try to keep that intact. And it could be a certain holiday or a certain family meal or Sunday, but it was just what stood out was just making sure we preserve um, those opportunities. As I'm going through the season of loss, I'm looking forward to the family reunion and many I haven't seen and those things. And hopefully we'll be able to travel to see some more family, not in the area, but I just think of those things we do that are tradition and making sure that they don't get lost and that we protect them and preserve them because once again, as we talked about earlier, we never know when that season's going to change or that change is going to come or what have you. So, I say protect those those family traditions, care for those elders and seek that wisdom and knowledge from them that we can and have them pour into our young. I look at the connection my kids have with their grandparents and because they've lost, my parents are gone, so they only have one set left. And I cherish that connection and the wisdom that they can give and any chance we have to come together, and they can see the 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 elders of the family, right? We cherish that because we don't have them forever, and we got to make sure we pass on a certain love and respect for our family and those things that continually keep us together. So I'm not going to be the dead horse on that, but I know we have holidays coming up and summertime, a lot of people travel and stuff, but just make sure we protect those things that are sacred to our family and those elders and the wisdom that we gain. A lot of times the kids is kind of, I ain't got time for that or do that. I know when I try to talk to my kids about stuff, they kind of like, oh, okay, all right. But do the best you can, right, to preserve those things, right? Um, and just pray that we continue to pass them down, right, so that we can always know who we are as a family, right? If it is, like I say, if it's your family reunion every year you go to, if it's a function at your church, if it's a holiday you come around, protect those things and utilize them to continue to strengthen your bond because we never know what a new season will bring, right? We never know what's planned, but if we do it in faith in the Creator, right, we stay connected and we continue to grow in that faith. So that's all I have. Um, got a busy Saturday, got a lot to do, But I thank you all who have joined, and I pray you have a blessed weekend. And also, let me do it again just to remind you. All right. And I want to send one more shout out to Amelia the poet and my man A. Zachary Shepard with 1 in a million alkaline water. You saw the commercial at the beginning. I'm gonna play it again, but the 1 in a store, go get that water. I got it's about time for me to get my new shipment to come in. So but drink your water, stay hydrated, stay healthy. Uh, try to get them checkups. I'm trying to do better, y'all. But let me play it one more time. Shout out to them. Uh, get your alkaline water.
In a world full of rush, pause for a drink. Pure, clear, and fresh. Let your mind think. In every sip of 1 in 8 alkaline, you'll find a taste so pure, refreshes the mind. With a 9.5 pH, it's balanced just right. Electrolytes to keep you bright. Potassium fuels your everyday, keeps you glowing in every way. Drink water and mind your business until it's time to stand on it. 1 in 8 alkaline, the water that keeps you glowing. Let's glow.
And we out. Enjoy your Saturday and your weekend. Peace.